Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy daily stories about cheating, revenge, and relationship advice. It was a quiet Thursday evening, the kind of evening where nothing extraordinary ever happens. Julia and I had fallen into a routine. We weren't one of those couples that did dinner in front of the TV, no, we always sat down at the table together, even if the conversation was a little more strained than it used to be. I wasn't sure when that started, when the silence between us had gotten heavier. But tonight felt different, like there was something in the air neither of us wanted to acknowledge. Julia had made pasta. Her hands moved methodically, twisting spaghetti onto her fork, but she wasn't eating. Her eyes were distant, like she was somewhere else entirely. I tried to shake off the feeling gnawing at my gut. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She froze mid-twist, her fork hanging in the air. A moment passed, then another. Finally, she set her fork down and clasped her hands together, taking a deep breath. That was the first sign. Julia never fiddled with her hands unless something was wrong. "Tom, we need to talk." It was a phrase I'd heard before, usually when something minor was wrong, an argument over the grocery list or who forgot to take out the trash. But this time, her voice cracked just a little, like she was holding back something bigger. Something darker. My heart thudded in my chest. "What's going on?" I asked, leaning back in my chair, bracing for whatever was about to come. She didn't look at me right away. She stared at the napkin in her lap, and when she finally raised her eyes, I saw guilt there, deep and painful. My stomach churned. There's something I need to tell you," Julia began slowly. Her voice wavered as though she was struggling to keep her composure. "I've been seeing someone. From work." I blinked, my mind unable to catch up to her words. "Seeing someone?" I didn't speak. I couldn't. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air sucked out. Julia was still speaking, but I barely heard her over the roar in my ears. "His name is Mike," she continued, her eyes darting away, unable to meet mine. "We've been talking for a while, and things got out of hand." I swallowed hard, my hands clenched under the table. "Out of hand how?" Her breath hitched, and she rubbed her hands together as if trying to soothe the tension out of them. "We kissed, Tom. That's it, so far." Her voice cracked again. "I swear, we haven't done anything else. We haven't slept together. I promise." I stood abruptly, pushing my chair back, the legs scraping against the floor. "A kiss?" I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. "So far." Julia flinched at the anger in my voice. "It was a mistake, Tom," she said quickly. "It just happened, just happened." I spat. "Things like that don't just happen, Julia. A kiss doesn't come out of nowhere." She closed her eyes for a moment, tears brimming beneath her lashes. "I know. I'm not excusing it, I swear. I'm telling you because," she paused, inhaling deeply. "Because I want to be honest with you. We were planning a trip." "A trip?" My voice rose, my heart pounding in my chest. "What kind of trip, Julia?" "To Las Vegas," she whispered, her voice barely audible now. "This weekend." "But, Tom, please, Las Vegas?" I shouted, the full weight of her betrayal crashing down on me. I could feel my blood boiling, the anger, the disbelief. "So, you were going to spend the weekend with this guy? What the hell were you thinking?" Julia's tears spilled over then, but I didn't care. I couldn't care. Not now. "It was stupid," she sobbed. "I was stupid. We've been distant, Tom. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, but we don't." I cut her off, my voice trembling. "Don't you dare blame this on us." "I'm not blaming you," she pleaded. "I'm just trying to explain." "There's nothing to explain, Julia." I slammed my hand on the table, the sound reverberating through the room. "You kissed someone else. You planned a weekend away with him. What else do I need to know?" Julia shook her head frantically, wiping her eyes. "We haven't slept together. I swear, Tom, I would never, would never. I laughed bitterly, pacing back and forth. You were about to. How am I supposed to believe you? How am I supposed to believe anything you say? She reached out, her voice desperate now. Tom, please, I don't want to lose you. I'm telling you because I want to fix this. I don't care about Mike. I love you. I stopped in my tracks, staring at her with all the hurt and anger boiling inside me. Love? I scoffed. Is this how you show love, Julia? By planning to run off with some guy from work? I made a mistake, she whispered, her voice cracking again. I'm sorry. I stood there, staring at the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd married, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I couldn't speak anymore. Words wouldn't come. Without another glance, I walked out of the room, leaving her behind with her apologies and her tears. I needed to get out. I needed to breathe. But most of all, I needed to figure out if there was anything left to save. The early morning light streamed through the narrow window of our bedroom, casting a muted glow on the space. I hadn't slept a wink the night before, my mind racing with every imaginable scenario of how things might play out. Julia's confession haunted me, her betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my gut. As I sat in the darkened corner of the room, I made a decision. I needed to confront this head-on. I had to show Julia the gravity of her actions, to make her understand the impact of what she'd done. I reached into the closet, retrieving a small wooden coffin I had prepared earlier. It was a simple thing, handcrafted but rough around the edges. I had spent hours working on it, driven by an impulse to symbolize the end of our relationship. Inside, resting gently on a bed of felt, was our marriage certificate, folded but intact. I set the coffin on the kitchen table and sat down, waiting for Julia to wake. The house was eerily quiet, each tick of the clock on the wall magnified in the stillness. Julia finally stumbled into the kitchen, her eyes still red from crying. She looked at the coffin, confusion and fear crossing her face. Tom, what is that? She asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer immediately. I wanted her to fully absorb the gravity of the situation. I took a deep breath and finally said, this is where we are, Julia. This is what your choices have led to. She moved closer, her gaze fixed on the coffin as if it were a ghost from her past. What are you talking about? You wanted to be honest with me, I said, my voice rough. Well, I'm being honest with you now. This is the end if you go through with it. I pointed to the coffin, my hands shaking. I'm sealing this coffin with our marriage certificate inside it. If you go to Las Vegas with Mike, I'm closing this chapter. For good. Her face turned pale, her eyes filling with tears once more. Tom, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But this is drastic, drastic. I said, my voice rising. You were going to spend a weekend away with another man. You planned to be with him, to betray everything we've built together. I have to show you how serious this is. Julia's hands flew to her mouth, her tears spilling freely. I'm sorry, Tom. I never wanted it to come to this. I thought I could fix things, but I was wrong. I didn't think about how this would hurt you. I stood up, pacing back and forth. You didn't think about how it would destroy everything we've worked for. You just acted on impulse. Now, look where we are. She reached out, her voice pleading. Tom, please. I'm begging you. Don't do this. I don't want to lose you. I'm trying to make it right. I'll cancel the trip. I'll do whatever it takes. I stopped pacing and faced her, my eyes hard and unyielding. I need to know if you're really committed to fixing this. Actions speak louder than words. If you want to prove that you're serious about saving our marriage, then you need to show me. Not just say it. I will, she promised, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll quit my job. I'll do anything. Just please, don't give up on us. I looked at the coffin, my heart heavy with the weight of the decision I had to make. It's not just about saying you're sorry, Julia. It's about showing me you're willing to do the work. To rebuild what we had. She sank into a chair, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I'll do it. I promise. I'll prove to you that I want to fix this. Just, please don't close that coffin yet. I took a deep breath, the anger in me slowly giving way to the aching sadness. I'm not closing it yet. But if you don't follow through, if you don't take this seriously, then that's it. This coffin stays sealed. Julia nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and despair. I understand. With that, I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her with the coffin and the crushing weight of her actions. I needed time to think, to process everything. And Julia needed to face the reality of what she had done and what it would take to fix it. The house was quiet once more, but now it was filled with the heavy silence of uncertainty. As the door closed behind Tom, the sound of it echoing through the empty hallway was a jarring reminder of the gravity of my actions. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the small wooden coffin on the table. My heart ached with a mix of guilt and regret, each beat a painful reminder of how far I'd let things spiral out of control. I moved mechanically, my mind racing with the consequences of my decisions. My fingers trembled as I carefully pried open the coffin's lid, revealing the folded marriage certificate nestled inside. Seeing it there, so innocently preserving the vows we'd made to each other, only deepened the wound in my chest. The weight of what I'd done crashed down on me. I had never imagined things would get this bad. Tom's face, contorted with hurt and anger, replayed in my mind. I could still hear his voice, firm and unyielding, as he told me what would happen if I went through with the trip. His words echoed like a death knell in my heart. I have to fix this, I said aloud to myself, my voice barely a whisper. The enormity of my mistake felt suffocating. I knew I had to act quickly to salvage what was left. I grabbed my phone from the kitchen counter, dialing Mike's number with shaking hands. The phone rang several times before Mike answered, his voice cheerful but instantly turning cautious when he heard the tone of mine. Julia. What's wrong? Mike's voice was filled with concern. I'm canceling the trip, I said, my voice trembling. I can't go to Las Vegas. I made a terrible mistake, and I need to fix it. There was a pause on the other end. What do you mean? Did something happen? Yes, I said, closing my eyes as the tears started again. I need to make things right with Tom. I'm going to try and save my marriage. I'm so sorry, Mike. This was never supposed to hurt anyone, but it did. I'm really sorry, Julia, Mike said softly. I didn't want to cause any pain. I hope you can work things out with Tom. Take care. I ended the call, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. The trip was off, but the damage was done. I had to find Tom and try to make amends, but I wasn't even sure where he had gone. I needed to think clearly, so I decided to drive to the park where we used to go for walks, hoping he might be there. As I drove, my mind was consumed with regret. Every wrong turn seemed like another failure, another missed chance to undo the hurt. When I finally arrived at the park, I saw Tom sitting on a bench under a large oak tree, staring off into the distance. The sight of him, so lost and alone, nearly broke me. I approached slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. Tom. I called out tentatively. He looked up, his eyes red and weary. Julia. What are you doing here? I came to apologize, I said, my voice cracking. I'm so sorry for everything. I canceled the trip. I realized what a huge mistake I made. Tom didn't respond immediately. He just looked at me, a mixture of skepticism and pain in his eyes. You canceled the trip. That's a start, but it's not enough. I know, I said, sitting down next to him. I've been thinking about what you said last night. About how actions speak louder than words. I want to prove to you that I'm serious about fixing this. I've even quit my job. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Tom's gaze softened slightly, but he still seemed guarded. You quit your job? Yes, I nodded, tears streaming down my cheeks. I want to show you that you're my priority. I want to work on our relationship, not just talk about it. He sighed, rubbing his face with his hands. It's going to take time, Julia. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. I need to know that this isn't just an impulse decision. I understand, I said, my voice earnest. I'm committed to this. I'll do whatever it takes. I just want a chance to make things right. Tom looked at me, his expression a mixture of hurt and hope. I'm willing to try, Julia. But it's going to be a long road. I need to see real effort, not just words. I'll show you, I promised, my heart heavy but hopeful. I'll work every day to earn back your trust. We sat there in silence, the weight of the conversation settling between us. The park, once a symbol of our shared happiness, now felt like a fragile bridge between us, tenuous but worth crossing. For the first time in days, there was a glimmer of hope. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me believe that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The days following our confrontation were filled with a cautious, fragile hope. Julia and I had begun to navigate the turbulent waters of our relationship, trying to rebuild what had been so suddenly and painfully shattered. It was a daunting task, but I was willing to give it a chance, and Julia was showing signs of sincere effort. Julia had resigned from her job at the marketing firm, a move she hoped would prove her commitment to repairing our marriage. It was a significant gesture, but it was only the beginning. We needed more than grand gestures, we needed honest, consistent effort from both of us. One evening, Julia suggested we attend a couples therapy session. It was something we had never done before, but it felt like a necessary step. I agreed, willing to explore any avenue that might help us heal. The therapy sessions were held in a warm, inviting office. Dr. Lewis, our therapist, was a calm and understanding presence. She guided us through conversations about our feelings, our expectations, and the future we wanted to build together. In one session, Dr. Lewis asked us to reflect on what we had learned from the crisis. Tom, Julia, she began, her voice gentle, what do you both see as the main issues that led to this point, and how do you envision moving forward? Julia took a deep breath, her eyes focused on the floor. I think the main issue was that I lost sight of what was important. I let myself get caught up in the excitement and attention I was getting from Mike. I didn't consider how it would affect Tom and our relationship. I nodded, listening intently. For me, the issue was feeling completely blindsided. I thought we had a solid marriage, and suddenly I was faced with the reality that Julia was seeing someone else. It shattered my trust. Dr. Lewis nodded, encouraging us to continue. And what steps are you both taking to address these issues? I've started attending therapy myself, Julia said, her voice filled with determination. I want to understand why I made the choices I did and work on bettering myself. I've also committed to spending more time with Tom and working on our communication. I glanced at Julia, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. I appreciate her efforts, I said. I'm also committed to working on our relationship. I've started reading books on rebuilding trust and attending individual counseling to deal with my own feelings of betrayal and hurt. Dr. Lewis smiled, seeing the progress we were making. It's clear that both of you are dedicated to this process. Remember, rebuilding trust takes time, but it's possible if you both remain committed. After the session, Julia and I walked to our car, the weight of the day still heavy but feeling lighter than before. We had made some progress, and that was something to hold on to. As we drove home, Julia turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. Tom, how are you feeling about all of this? Are you seeing any positive changes? I am, I said honestly. I'm still hurt, and it's going to take time to heal. But I see that you're making an effort, and that means something to me. I'm willing to keep working at it. She reached over, taking my hand in hers. Thank you for giving us a chance. I know it won't be easy, but I'm committed to making things right. In the following weeks, Julia and I continued our therapy sessions, and we also began to implement small changes in our daily lives. We set aside time for regular, open conversations about our feelings and worked on reconnecting through shared activities we both enjoyed. It was a slow process, but each small step felt like a victory. One evening, as we sat together in our living room, I looked at Julia, feeling a sense of cautious optimism. You know, it's not just the big gestures that matter. It's the little things too, the way you listen, the way you're present. It's helping. Julia smiled, her eyes warm. I'm learning that it's the everyday actions that really count. I want to show you every day that I'm committed to this. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of our shared effort and dedication hanging between us. It wasn't a perfect solution, and there were still many challenges ahead, but there was a newfound sense of hope. For the first time in a long while, it felt like we were on a path to healing, one that, while uncertain, was illuminated by the light of our renewed commitment to each other.